Serious Survivor here. Well, with everything that's going on in the world, I wanted to take a break from some of the things. So I wanted to change the subject a little bit. It is getting winter. It's getting cold outside, and it's only going to get colder over the next couple of months, especially in these northern states. So I wanted to talk a little bit about things that we can include in not necessarily just a bug out bag, but an emergency bag. One that we keep in our vehicle, one that we keep close by in case an emergency occurs. This is something that I can grab, carry with me, and something that would, assist in keeping me alive, at least for a short amount of time, with the food and supplies in it, but with the tools that's kept in it, could keep me alive for a very extended period of time. So we're going to look at 25 items that will be a great addition to your cold weather gear, your cold weather bug out or emergency bag. I keep a bag like this in my vehicle at all times. I think a lot of people out there probably do. Most experienced preppers probably already have all these boxes checked, but let's check out 25 items. The first is a sturdy waterproof backpack, or at the bare minimum a backpack cover for your backpack. It's very important to have a backpack that's not just comfortable, but one that will last. We can go to thrift stores, we can go to places like that, and sometimes we can get a pretty good deal on a good backpack, but these can be a little bit on the pricey side. So if money is an issue, think about investing in a backpack cover instead, something that'll keep it dry. This has the same functionality basically at a fraction of the price. But no one can really dispute the benefits of having a well-made pack. Number 2 is a sleeping bag. I opt for the mummy type, a military type sleeping bag, and this may seem like a lot, but you can wrap these pretty tight. They don't weigh too much, and it ties right on the top of my bag, so it's a pretty handy device, and it's something that you're going to want, especially in cold weather. In southern states and in warmer climates, a sleeping bag may not be a necessity, but in a northern climate like I'm in now, a sleeping bag is definitely something that I keep in my vehicle and I keep with my survival gear, and I feel it's a necessary part of my gear at this point in time. Number 3, also having Mylar emergency blankets and possibly a Mylar emergency tent. This can come in survival situations. This can come in handy, and it can even be a lifesaver. Number 4, you might want to add in an extra pair of socks and extra change of clothing, or maybe some additional clothing if you have room for the gear. Thermals, underwear, compression type of clothes, something that's going to help keep you warm. Because survival in a cold weather climate can be more difficult, to be honest, than it is in a warmer climate, especially if you're in a wilderness area in a survival situation. Having the ability to stay warm is going to make the difference between life and death. Number 5, waterproof boots, or at the bare minimum boot covers that will slip over your boots. Boots and shoes are an investment. These can make a big difference in how far you can travel each day and how easy it is to travel. Cheaper boots and cheaper shoes are not going to hold up as well, and they're going to give you a lot of problems, not just to mention making your feet hurt, but when your feet get wet, then this can actually lead to medical issues, and this is something that we want to prevent if possible. So a good set of waterproof hiking boots will come in very handy in a survival situation. Number 6, our food and water. We need a minimum of 3 days food and water, and the water is going to be the heavy part, but we can still do this. Water purification bottles. In the area of the country that I'm living in now, Michigan, water is not an issue. There are lakes everywhere, so having means of water purification is more important than me carrying gallons of water with me. So depending on your environment, you may opt for purification methods and carrying a smaller amount of water, but the food is definitely going to be necessary because in a heavily populated area, you're not always going to be able to obtain food, and it's better to have your own instead of having to go out and basically fend for yourself in an urban environment. Chemical warmers, our hand warmers, our feet warmers. These are very important in my opinion. The weather gets colder up here than I've ever had to really get used to, except for my military days 30 years ago. So this is something that, any device that I can have that's going to make my survival a little easier in a cold weather environment, then I consider this device almost a necessity. And the chemical warmers, the little hand warmers and feet warmers we have, these are gonna come in very handy, especially if you're having to walk through an area and it's extremely cold. At night it gets below 0 here and the wind chill's even worse. So this is something that we definitely want to factor in. Number 8, a camp stove and mess kit. Camp stove would be more of something that's not an actual necessity. It's something that if you can obtain would be very good. And I'm talking about the small folding types of camp stoves. I'm not talking about the large propane ones, the ones that would be difficult to carry, because we're looking at putting the majority of this stuff in our bag, with the exception of the sleeping bag, which would probably tie to the top of your bag, depending on the situation. But some type of mess kit with a metal cup, and make sure you have a metal cup so that you can boil your water. There are a lot of mess kits out there that come with plastic utensils, plastic plates, and plastic cups, and that's okay, but it's not good in a survival situation, because when you need to boil that water, you now have nothing to boil it in. Number 9, a head cover, some type of head covering, face mask, gloves, scarf. And gloves are extremely important. Protecting our extremities in a cold weather environment, our hands, our head, and our feet, this is going to get colder quicker than the core of our body will. So we have to make sure to cover this parts of our body well too. There are a lot of really good gloves on the market and a lot of good face masks, ski mask types of devices. We can use those, and those will help us in that type of situation. Number 10, some people may not consider this a necessity, and I wouldn't say it's an absolute necessity, but a shovel, a folding shovel, a type of tool like that, one that enables us to dig if necessary. This is going to come in handy in more than one scenario. Which brings us to the next, number 11, an axe or hatchet, or a handsaw, a folding handsaw of some type. Now you could sort of group these two categories together, but having these types of tools is really just going to help you out. You can survive without a lot of the tools we talk about, but some tools just make survival so much easier. They make it more efficient. The more efficiently we can perform tasks like building shelter and preparing our fire, then the easier survival is going to be, and the more we can focus on developing a plan instead of worrying just about getting the bare essentials. Number 12, reliable methods of starting a fire. We know that we can use friction methods, bow drills, hand drills, things like that, rubbing sticks together, rubbing wood together, and that works. But in a very cold environment, or especially in a damp environment, this is going to be much more difficult to do. And that's why having means to start a fire, having some items that you carry with you that can be easily lit on fire, like tinder. People use dryer lint. People use a lot of things that they store in bags and keep in their kits, something that we can build a fire with easier. And this also is talking about our fire steels. These are great devices, but in reality, having a Zippo or a big lighter is also one of the preps that I keep at all times. And this is going to give me the ability to make a fire quickly. In a damp environment, it's a little harder to make a fire with a fire steel than it is in a dry, warm environment. So having devices that we can put an open flame onto our kindling, then we're going to be able to create a fire much easier. Number 13, another important aspect is sunglasses or ski goggles. This may not seem that important, but if it's in a winter environment and it is snowing outside, then it's very difficult in those times to see. I'm sure you've heard the term snow blindness. And this isn't maybe a necessity, but it's just going to make things a little easier on you. Number 14, a first aid kit. Now in this first aid kit, we want to gear this specifically towards things that we would need in a cold weather environment. And believe it or not, but sunscreen and definitely lip balm, these are some things that we would need. Our personal hygiene items, toiletries, wet wipes, things such as that. You also want to include your standard first aid supplies. Now this is a first aid kit that we carry in our bug out bag or in this emergency bag. Then it's not going to be huge, but we do want to have some of the basics, like some basic cold and flu medicine, zinc, antihistamines, and along with any personal medication that you may have. Number 15, flashlight and batteries. And this can also double as a signaling device. You maybe even include an emergency whistle with it. Some people opt to do that. A flashlight and batteries are pretty much self-explanatory, and these are some essential parts of a bag like this. Number 16, a fishing kit. And this is going to come in handy, especially if you are in a survival situation to where you're away from civilization. Having the means to fish is going to be able to put food in your belly at those times when you can't find food anywhere else. Number 17, paracord. Have at least a 50-foot roll of paracord. These are not very expensive. You can get them at most stores, especially hardware stores, and you can get them for less than $10 generally, so it's not that expensive. Number 18, a fixed blade knife and possibly a multi-tool of some type. I like to carry both. My choice of my fixed blade knife is my K-Bar 1211. Really love that knife, and I also carry a multi-tool in my bag too, just in case I need it. Multi-tools come in handy in all different types of situations, but with a fixed blade knife, this is one of your basic survival tools. If I leave anything off of this list, it's not going to be a fixed blade knife. That's going to be the number one priority, and if at all possible, if you can't afford it, two if necessary, or if able. Number 19, an overlooked part, but an important part in my opinion, are books on the area. And I'm talking about books that describe the edible plants in your particular area. I've been in this area of the country less than a year, so I do recognize a lot of edible plants, but I don't know them all. But a book of the area that describes these edible plants to me, that just increases my chances of survival, because it opens the door and gives me more opportunities for food and sustenance. Number 20, navigation devices, a map and compass. Now, GPS and all that, that's great, and if the grid is not down, then that's great, and that's going to help you out more than anything else. But in a situation to where you can't access that, if your batteries are dead on the GPS, if your phone's not working, if it's a pretty severe situation, being able to read a map and compass is a basic survival skill. Being able to navigate the wilderness using only a map and compass, it's harder than people think if you haven't been trained, but it's not that hard if you learn the basics. Number 21, plastic sheeting or a heavy-duty tarp of some type, and this is going to help you build that temporary shelter until you get a little bit more permanent shelter set up. It can be a lifesaver if you're in inclement weather. Number 22, duct tape. I don't think duct tape needs any explanation. This comes in handy in so many different scenarios. It's strong, it's durable, so duct tape is something that we like to carry in all of my kits. Number 23, a radio and means of communication. This is important because if you are in a situation to where you have bugged out, or if you're in a survival situation, you need to have the ability to know what's going on around you. And having some type of solar powered or hand crank radio is going to give you that benefit. And that may make the difference of between me knowing it's safe to go back into town or not. This is a very important aspect. And these can be purchased for, usually around $20 for a decent one. Of course, if you're willing to spend more, you can get some really outstanding ones. Number 24 is not a necessary part, especially in a lot of people's opinions. I find it necessary, and it's binoculars or a monocular of some type. Being able to see what's a long ways away from you could save your life in certain situations. Knowing what's going on around you, you can only see so far, but having a set of binoculars, a good set of binoculars or a monocular, then you will have the ability to basically gather intel on your surrounding area. And this could make the difference between me walking into a bad situation or me avoiding a bad situation. And number 25, weapons, firearms. This is also what I consider one of the most important parts, because if we are in a survival situation, then there is a reason we're there. Unless it's a situation to where maybe we're in a bad snowstorm and we're trapped in our car and we're relying on this gear to survive and until the road's clear, that's a different situation. But in some of the things we see going on in the world right now, then it's very possible that we may be stopped somewhere. We may have to abandon our vehicle, and we may have to take only this bag with us. So having everything you would need in this bag to help protect yourself is of extreme importance. I'm a strong advocate of carrying a personal firearm and having a means of personal defense. Well, those are 25 items. A lot of people probably thought a lot of these. I'd like to hear in the comments below. Give me some ideas for some things that maybe I left out. The cold weather aspect of survival is something that I'm researching and I'm getting better used to myself. So I'm learning here just like a lot of other people may be. And I want to learn more just like anyone does. So thanks a lot for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. God bless, and for now, Serious Survivor, out.